I'm gonna El Stapo my El recording o.
Ooh. Hey guys, Everyday Aficionados here. I'm Shawn.
Miguel.
And October's here, there's a chill in the air, the leaves are turning, and Halloween is just around the corner. And that means we are starting our Spooktoberthon. That's right, we're going to be doing 4 horror movies in the month of October for your viewing pleasure. Let's get into it. Alright, so for my first choice, I had to go with this. This movie is just synonymous with Halloween in October. Halloween from 1978.
Halloween, the night he came home.
Directed by John Carpenter and starring Jamie Lee Curtis. Most people know this film. If you don't, it's about Michael Myers, this killer who escapes from a mental hospital. He comes back to the neighborhood he grew up in, and he starts, raising terror around Halloween. It's an iconic movie. Again, it's all over television every October. It's hard to have not seen this one.
Which is kind of sad considering I haven't.
Yeah. But this is one of those ones that I try to sit down and watch at least once every year. So I had to choose it for our first Spooktober marathon.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this one. I mean, as I said before, I haven't seen it, which I'm kind of ashamed of, as I'm a huge John Carpenter fan. But I remember being traumatized by Nightmare on Elm Street when I was a child, and I, for some reason, always associated that movie series with Halloween. So I kind of avoided it for all of my childhood, and then when I came of age, I just kind of never got around to seeing it. So I am really looking forward to righting some of those historical wrongs.
Yeah, this movie really kicked off that whole slasher film genre in the 70s. Of the big 3 of Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and this one's definitely my favorite. So for my second film, I chose Night of the Living Dead from 1968.
A night with the dead who cannot die. A night of total terror. Night of the Living Dead.
It's directed by George A. Romero, and this is just another one of those films that I watch every October. Really, these are the big 2 that I do try to watch every October. They exemplify horror movies and exemplify Halloween in the month of October. They just have that really nice autumn feel to it. Night of the Living Dead specifically, why I like it, it's just such an incredible film. It was really groundbreaking at the time. It really changed the horror genre. And to me, it's like a nice transition point between the classic black and white horror films and the newer sort of violent, bloody, gory films that are the standard today. This film really means a lot, too. It has a lot of social commentaries, and it's just one of my favorite films overall, not only one of my favorite horror films.
Oh yeah, it's definitely one of mine too. The film just did some really innovative things in terms of the types of characters who they presented, the way they reacted to each other. It skewed more towards realism rather than being the sort of sensationalistic sci-fi horror romp that we're used to from that era. So it really was, as you said, a huge turning point. And even just looking at the movie as a film on its own merits, it is pretty scary, and it is definitely one of the better zombie movies out there, even now after we've reached peak saturation in that genre.
It definitely stands out amongst all the other zombie films out there. I mean, there's a few others that are really good, but this one, to me, is the zombie film. It started it all.
Okay, so for my first pick, I have one that's a little controversial, but I'm sure most of us can agree that it was scary, at least the first time we watched it, and it was a pretty novel idea. The Blair Witch Project.
The search of the 3 missing Montgomery College students continues in Frederick County tonight.
10 days and thousands of man-hours have been unable to produce any clues.
We have a few leads, a few other options we want to take advantage of, and just try to put together some pieces to this puzzle.
Do you believe the occult may be involved in the disappearance of your son?
I'm so scared.
I know it has a bad rap nowadays for some reason. A lot of people consider it kind of corny or cheesy or whatever. But the whole idea of found footage was really cool, and the Blair Witch Project was the first movie to do it really successfully. Of course, there had been movies up to that point that used the technique, but the Blair Witch Project was the first to achieve a sort of mainstream success. And it makes the movie feel really, well, believable, you know? These people interact with each other just like they're real people in this, who are actually lost in this forest, and it gets very eerie. It kind of gets under your skin in a way that a more theatrical movie, a more traditional horror movie or a slasher film really can't, because the film isn't playing to all of these old horror tropes. It was doing something really cool and innovative for its time, and I still think that if you watch it and give it a chance, it can still scare you.
It plays off of real fears. That fear of being lost in the woods, not knowing what's out there. I definitely think it's a scary film, and I'm really glad you picked that one. I think it definitely belongs in a Halloween marathon.
And the next film I'm choosing is The Shining.
I dreamed that I killed you and Danny.
You did this to him, didn't you?
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains. Here's Johnny.
This is, of course, a Stanley Kubrick film from the 70s, starring Jack Nicholson as a writer who's taking his family on a little bit of a vacation as they tend to this hotel during the off-season. It's a pretty mundane setup, but you'd be surprised at how far this movie really goes in terms of its subject matter. Most people are really familiar with it, but the reason why I chose it is because it does things that other horror films really don't bother trying to do. And it can sort of float under the radar of your expectations. You can watch the movie and really just consider it a horror film and not get all of these other things out of it. But there's lots of interesting ideas about colonialism, American race relations and racism, misogyny, alcohol abuse. There are all of these really interesting themes going on in this movie, along with the supernatural and the horrific elements of it as well. So I think it's a really complex film, and it's got a lot of layers, and you gotta love that in a film.
And this is another one of those films that seems to be played decently often every Halloween. I've seen it multiple times. I really like it. I love Jack Nicholson's performance in this movie. I definitely think it's pretty creepy and scary. It's definitely the best Stephen King film adaptation. I think it's a really good movie. It's very visually interesting as well. So, I definitely think that we've got 4 great movies for this month of October. I'm definitely excited to watch them. Do you guys like these films? Which ones are your favorites? Are you excited to see the reviews? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and hopefully you'll have a happy Spooktober.
We are the Everyday Aficionados, and remember, whether it's liqueurs, movies, games, or beer,
if you're looking for reviews, you can find them here. Thanks for watching. Until next time.
See you later.